What is going on, everyone? Welcome to episode 1 of The Outworker. I'm your host, Tim Doyle, and I'm not gonna lie, that feels pretty cool to say. Yesterday I was just Tim Doyle, but today is the first day that I get to say that I'm the host of my very own podcast. I've been wanting to do this for a while now, and now it feels so good to actually be doing it. I was contemplating so many minor, pointless details of how I wanted to do it, and I set it up, and I just got to the point where I was like, you'll figure it out as you go along. Just start it already. So in today's episode, I'll explain some of the other podcast names that I came up with, but decided not to go with, the meaning and significance behind the name The Outworker, the reason why I wanted to start a podcast, and what are my expectations for all this. So before getting into the backstory of what The Outworker means, I want to share some of the other names that I came up with. There were 4 other ideas that I had, so hey, if anyone's listening right now who wants to start a podcast and thinks one of these names and the concept behind it is cool, go for it. Take it and run with it. This podcast is all about the passion behind personal development, building a strong relationship with ourselves, becoming the best versions of ourselves in all aspects of life, and talking with other people who have that same passion for all of the above. So each of the names that I came up with relate to this, generally speaking. The first alternative name that I came up with was the Building Podcast. But building here isn't spelt like it normally is. It's spelled Bildung. And you're probably like, what the hell does that mean? It's a German word that I learned about in school. I was an English major in college, and a type of genre that we read was called a Bildungsroman. And a Bildungsroman focuses on the psychological and moral growth of the main character as they grow up from a kid into an adult. And a Bildungsroman originates from this word and idea of building. Here's a quick definition of what it means. Building refers to the German tradition of self-cultivation that refers to a process of both personal and cultural maturation. This maturation is a harmonization of the individual's mind and heart and a unification of selfhood and identity within the broader society. In this sense, the process of harmonization of mind, heart, selfhood, and identity is achieved through personal transformation, which presents a challenge to the individual's accepted beliefs. The challenge of personal growth often involves an agonizing alienation from one's natural consciousness that leads to a reunification and development of the self. Building is a lifelong process of human development. It is seen as a process where an individual's spiritual and cultural sensibilities, as well as life, personal, and social skills, are in process of continual expansion and growth. Building is seen as a way to become more free due to higher self-reflection. This is such a cool concept in the main name that I kept going back and forth on, and right now I'm like, man, I really love this name actually. I also find it so interesting how even though it's spelled differently, it still looks and sounds like building, which just plays more into the reason why I liked it so much. Personal development is all about building. I've made videos about it before. Be a builder. Anything truly worth having in life won't be given and can only be built. Working out, bodybuilding, building your mind, it all plays into this concept. The second name that I had for this podcast was athletic. The concept behind this was a little different. Basically, my thought process here is that everyone, no matter what, is an athlete. An athlete isn't what you are. An athlete is what you do, how you do it, and why you do it. In this sense, we are all athletes, aka we're athletic. You don't need to be a superstar person or gifted in some sport or activity to live your life like an athlete. Athlete is a mindset. It's having the drive to pursue constant improvement and showing up every day to do the work. Because at the end of the day, when you strip down our external understanding of an athlete, this is what an athlete truly does. We see ourselves as different than these superstar athletes because we really only get to view them 1% of the time on the big stage with the spotlight on them. But what an athlete truly is that other 99% where you don't see them, when they're training, suffering, recovering, and trying to get better. One of my favorite quotes is from Bill Bowerman, who is one of the co-founders of Nike. He created the brand slogan, "If you have a body, you are an athlete." And that's what athletic represents. All right, the third name is called the Personomy Podcast. And basically the premise behind this name comes from the quote from Warren Buffett: "The biggest investment you can make is an investment in yourself." Personomy is a word that I made up to represent this idea. It's the combination of the words person and economy, or as I like to say, personomy. When a company invests time, money, and resources in itself, and as a result grows and succeeds, its stock price goes up in the economy. Well, the same holds true if we live in personomy. When we invest our time, energy, and devote ourselves to our personal development, our intrinsic value, or our personal stock, goes up as well. I don't know how one goes about doing this, but I low-key kind of want to get the word personomy in the dictionary somehow. I don't know how many people could say they've gotten a word added to the English language, but that would be pretty cool to add to the resume. All right. And the last name I came up with for a podcast title was 61 Minutes. There's absolutely no type of thought process for this name like the first three. The only idea behind it is that I would release episodes at 8:01 p.m. on Sunday nights, right after 60 Minutes airs. So if anyone wants to use any of these names for their own podcast, I'd love to see 61 Minutes created. All right. Now finally to the real name, the name that I chose, the name that I'm going with, The Outworker. The Outworker was also the first name that I ever came up with, and that was almost over 3 years ago now, which is crazy to think of. And the idea behind it is because of working out. For me, my mindset when it comes to working out is that I'm outworking what I did in my previous session. Whether it's adding more weight, doing more reps, or some other quantifiable factor, I am in a constant state of trying to beat that last workout. And I remember I had the thought, I was like, oh, that's cool. A workout is just a flip-flop of the actual word. While I do love the concepts and ideas of the other podcast names that I had, the Outworker and this word, outwork, resonates with me the most. Like the word outwork and what it means is something I feel I truly live by every single day. Like I said earlier, outworking is all about being in a constant state of trying to beat yourself so that you can progress. Outworking is personal development. The gym introduced me to this mindset and way of life, and now it's carried over into all other aspects of my life. Another reason, though, why I'm drawn to the name, The Outworker, and the concept behind it, is because I think we need to redefine what it means to outwork. When you hear outwork, you tend to think of it in relation to other people. I'm going to outwork the competition. Nobody can outwork me. That guy over there, he just got outworked. Even in the dictionary, the definition makes us have this understanding. Outworking is defined as work harder, faster, longer than someone else. So what we're basically saying is that it's impossible to outwork unless it's involving someone else. You can't truly outwork unless you're trying to outdo someone else. And what I'm saying is, that's completely wrong. The ultimate form of outworking, the type of work it truly takes to sustain long-term progress, is a singular internal process. Let's say if I go into the gym and throw up 225 on the bench, and the guy next to me puts up 185, does that automatically mean that I outworked him? How long has that guy been working out? Is he recovering from an injury and not able to lift as much as he once was? Is he even going his hardest? Does he have the same mentality as me when it comes to outworking my previous lifts? And what if the opposite happens? What if another guy comes in and starts repping out 315 while you're only doing 225? Are you the one who's automatically getting outworked now? I used to work for a real estate company, and I remember when I was an intern there before I started working full time. I asked one of the real estate brokers, I said, "Is everyone on the team competitive with each other?" He told me, I mean, yes and no. Yes, because we are all naturally competitive people, but more so no, because we are all at different places in our careers. There are so many unknowns and uncontrollable factors when it comes to outworking in the general sense of the word that we have. This way of thinking and working forces us to be in a constant battle of comparison and competition. With that being said, though, competition is important. It's very important. Competing with others in athletics, school, work, or whatever it is natural and healthy. I'm an incredibly competitive person. I hate to lose. But I also know that the ultimate form of competition is with myself. Competitors will come and go. People will walk in and out of your life. Your environment will always change. But the man in the mirror will always be there. When I was much younger and in middle school, my dad told me once, just play your own game. And that always stuck with me. In school, it's so easy to get caught up in the social scene and be focused on what everyone is doing around you. That type of environment at a young age lends itself to conformity and seeking external validation from others. So when we're put into that environment at an early age and stay in that environment for a long period of time for our most impressionable years, comparison becomes ingrained in the way that we think and act for life. It's by no means easy to play your own game, but if you can break the mold and play the game with your own rules and own scoreboard, it will set you free and allow you to progress on your own terms for a lifetime. I don't know if anyone listening is a golf fan, but last year in the PGA golf tournament, a club pro named Michael Block came in 15th in the tournament and qualified for this year's PGA tournament. Now that might not sound like a lot to anyone, but for a club pro to achieve this is unheard of, and some would probably say won't ever happen again. I was listening to an interview that he did after the tournament, and he was asked, "How were you able to do so well in this tournament?" His response was simple: "I played my own game." He explained that in past tournaments, he tried being something he wasn't, and tried beating other players the way that they played golf, rather than simply focusing on his own strengths and his own game. Tony Robbins did an interview with Michael Jordan, and he asked him, "MJ, what makes you the best?" Jordan answered, "I don't compete with other people. I compete with what I'm capable of." This gets to the heart and soul of what it truly means to outwork. All right, I gave you the dictionary definition for outwork earlier in the episode, but just to repeat, that definition is to work harder, faster, or longer than someone else. Now here's my definition: to be in a constant state of improving upon the work or mental limitations of your past self. Because this is a completely singular, unique process, there's no one-size-fits-all example or way to outwork. For me, a fitness fanatic and gym junkie, it's going to look much different and have a much different experience than, let's say, a chef. And I'm using a chef as an example to make a point here. I was watching a cooking documentary on this chef who was in the process of opening his own restaurant and trying to become a Michelin star rated restaurant. The way he talked about his work and his process and his outlook on everything really resonated with me. And I realized that when it comes to our specific work, it looks very different. But the way that we go about that work and think about that work and obsess over that work is very, very similar. Outworking isn't just about the specific action. It's so much more than that. It's a mentality. It's the ultimate obsession and pride in one's own craft. And I think this chef thing proves it. This chef and I are in two completely different stratospheres. I weigh out and eat the same foods every single day and couldn't care less about the presentation, and he's plating meals and making sure it looks like a piece of art. We work differently, but the outworker's mentality is the same. Another point that I'll make about my definition for outworking is that it still embodies the same idea of the dictionary definition. And I'll tell you why. Because there are lots and lots and lots of people who won't stay or who will ever be in a constant state of progressing upon their past work or mental limitations. So if you focus on outworking yourself, you will naturally outwork others without even trying or thinking about it. Now, with all this being said, though, let's dive deeper. Because to outwork, to remain in this constant state of progressing upon your past work or mental limitations, it isn't a pretty glamorous or exciting process. It takes extreme amount of focus and determination. I find it very similar to building muscle. The body does not need to build muscle to survive or exist. Your body is perfectly comfortable staying the way that it is. It's up to you to put in a lot of work and apply that stress on your body in order to create that physical adaptation and build muscle. Well, the same holds true for your entire outworking journey. You don't need to outwork in order to survive or exist. Plus, society, your environment, the people around you, or any type of external factor are all perfectly comfortable with you staying exactly how you are. It can be challenging when you have these big forces that aren't necessarily discouraging you, but also aren't encouraging you to outwork to become your best self. So similar to building muscle, it's completely up to you to provide that outworking stimulus in order to grow in all areas of your life. You have to take total ownership day in and day out to progress yourself. It's not easy work, but once you get a taste, once you start to see a little bit of progress or development, you become hooked and want to see how far you can take it. And it's at this very point in your outworking journey that solitude starts to take on a larger role. To outwork is to become aligned with solitude. When I started to see some real progress from my work in the gym, I became obsessed with that progress. I wanted to double down on the work so I could continue to see more progress. Honing in on my diet, training, recovery, sleep, and continuing to educate myself on all the above, I became and continue to be driven by it. I also naturally became less concerned with things that wouldn't play a role in that progress, and I became even more disinterested in things that could potentially retract from the progress that I had already made. Whether it's in the gym, your sport, your job, or any type of personal project that you're really passionate about to the point of obsession, when you get a taste of progress, you become less interested in things that don't feed into that progress. And when embarking upon your outworking journey, you will move away from parts of your external world that do not serve that journey. So when you become less interested in external features of your environment and things that don't tap into more progress, it's no surprise to be met with a lot of solitude and time for internal reflection. One of my favorite quotes is from the German philosopher Arthur Schopenhauer. A man can be himself only so long as he is alone. And if he does not love solitude, he will not love freedom. For it is only when he is alone that he is really free. Your personal development requires solitude. That is what the expectation should be. Personal development is called personal development for a reason. It's personal. It's supposed to be singular. It's supposed to be personal. Career development takes place in a work environment. Team development takes place in a team environment. Business development takes place in a business environment. Social development takes place in a social environment. Real estate development takes place in a real estate environment. So why shouldn't the same hold true for personal development? Personal development takes place in a personal environment. Let's use the real estate development example for comparison's sake. Let's say you have this plot of land, nice location, great opportunity, and you see lots of potential in it. You're going to spend a lot of time and energy on that real estate development. You're going to have building plans, you're going to have blueprints, you're going to be at the site a lot. All of this is going to have you spending a lot of time and energy thinking about and working on this real estate development because you have this big vision for what you can build. You're also doing all this because you know you'd be crazy to leave this plot of land in its current state. You'd be wasting this land if it wasn't developed. Your personal development is the same. You are this plot of land that can be built up. And if you want to build yourself up into something big, into something that you have a vision of, well, then you're going to be spending a lot of time, energy, and work in a personal development setting. Personal development and outworking yourself is all about being a builder. It's about building that relationship with yourself. And to build that relationship with yourself, you need to spend a lot of time in a personal environment. When we're in a group setting, we only see who we are in relation to those around us. We become more susceptible to building ourselves in relation to other people. In solitude is when you can actually build in a way that is most natural and purposeful to you. That is when you can truly outwork the realist version of yourself. Now, by no means am I saying that this is easy. It will definitely be challenging and isolating at times. If you want to be the best version of yourself, though, I believe you have to get comfortable with not always being around. Don't settle and be a discount version of yourself so you can always be present and fit in. You attract the energy that you put out into the world. So if you're willing to be less than you can truly be, if you're willing to sacrifice who you can become so that you can fit in today, you'll attract that same type of energy. It's fine to do that, but just make sure that you're okay with that. Not living up to your potential attracts not living up to your potential. The best thing you can do for the people around you is to become the best version of yourself. It may mean that you may not see them as often or be as physically present as you could, but that's a small price to pay. One of three things will probably happen. The people around you will feed off of that energy and progress themselves. They'll be indifferent or they won't like it. But in that last case, why would you want to be around them in the first place if they have such a distaste for personal progression? Someone reached out to me a little while back on Instagram, and he said that him and his friend had just started working out together. He was doing well, but he said his friend was slacking with it. And he asked me what he should do to get his friend more motivated and consistent with it. I told him the only thing you should do is focus on your own work and outwork what he was doing on a daily basis. I said, your friend will either see your work and progress and want the same for himself, or he'll see it and he'll be indifferent. In other words, you'll learn what type of person your friend really is. And if you're truly obsessed with your personal progression and outworking who you are, you will naturally start to shift away from people in your network who do not bring that same type of energy to their own life. In Atomic Habits, James Clear stresses the role that people and our environment have on our lives and development. A person's chances of becoming obese increased by 57% if they had a friend who became obese. Another study found that if one person in a relationship lost weight, the other partner would also slim down about 1/3 of the time. We soak up the qualities and practices of those around us, Clear says. We can constantly give our time, energy, and space to other people and try to help them. But you got to do that for yourself even more. We help others by helping ourselves. People will come and go, but your relationship with yourself is constant. You need to invest the most time and energy into your own development and well being. But on top of that, you must also make sure that what you are investing your time and energy into is truly what you want. We must constantly take inventory of ourselves. Outworking isn't just about getting better. It's having the courage to be your true self in a world of conformity so that you can allow that person to outwork. Outworking a false version of yourself will leave you tired and unfulfilled. Outworking the realist version of yourself will bring life and energy into you. And this leads me to why I want to make this podcast. I've created a nice little personal brand for myself, and I just produced and released an 8-episode podcast series called Back on Top. It chronicles my recovery journey from 2 badly herniated discs. I absolutely love the work and the process that has gone into these things, especially the podcast series. So the question to myself was, how do I build off of these things then? I think that some of the best work we do comes natural to a certain extent. Maybe not the skills needed, but the feeling and emotion behind it. When I stepped foot into the gym and started working out regularly, it just felt right. And I don't know why, but creating this podcast feels like that as well. This feels like my next step in my outworking journey, so to speak. We need exercise to stay physically and mentally fit, but I also believe that we need something to stay creatively and thoughtfully fit. I wanted to make this podcast so that I could have an avenue and a medium to express my thoughts and allow them to sort of live and breathe on their own. You hear people say like, oh, if you have a lot of aggression or energy, maybe you should pick up boxing or martial arts so that you can use that energy. Well, I'd say I have a lot of thoughts and ideas, and I wanted something where I could put those thoughts to work. And I think a podcast is the perfect way for me to do that. And I wanted to have a platform where I could allow other outworkers to do the same. We all have stories, thoughts, work, and experiences that should be shared. I want to allow people to share those things. What I also want to show with this is basically like, we're all in this together. I feel like a lot of the time with social media where you see people in the public eye or they're putting stuff into the social media world, it's making it seem like, oh, I'm an expert. I'm higher up. I know more than you. It's kind of my biggest insecurity with the stuff that I do and using social media. Whether that's true or not, or if that's just my perception of it, that's how I feel. And I'm trying to say the exact opposite with this. Like, we're all in this together. I'm just trying to learn and get better at things that interest me. There's a lot of stuff that I don't know. I don't know anything about making a great podcast or becoming a good host. Well, what I'm saying is I'm just trying to get better. I'm just trying to outwork. And let me put that out there so that maybe there's other people who are motivated by the same thing, who want to get better on some type of passion or project that they have as well. I want to create a sense of community, and I don't want this just to be seen as a podcast, but I see this as creating a brand. In our increasingly isolated world, people don't want to just buy from a brand. They want to feel that they are the brand. They don't want to just identify with the brand. They want to be the identity of the brand. So if you're listening to this and you resonate with anything that I've talked about today, understand that you are the outworker. This does not exist without you. You are the outworker. I'm no bigger part of this than you are, and I truly mean that. I'm just another person trying to outwork and work on things that interest me just like you. It's important to find that common bond, but that cannot come at the cost of losing your authenticity and sense of what makes you, you. This is a tribe of individuality. People crave to be a part of something bigger than themselves, but that is turned into a herd mentality. What race are you? What gender are you? What political party do you support? What religion are you? The world has reduced us all to these types of questions. This is not a coincidence. This is by design. Create a society that separates individuals from their individuality. Separate them so that they feel dependent on these ideological buzzwords to feel seen. Turn them into pawns so that they're forced to live by these fixed rules so that they can feel some type of belonging. So that leads to the question, how do you belong to something bigger but still hold on to your own individuality and authenticity? Work. And more specifically, the internal work we do to develop and build our unique selves. That's the answer, in my opinion. That type of work is a beautiful thing. And not just the work itself, but the manner in which we do that work and think about that work. One of the hottest topics nowadays is how lonely and isolated we are. In fact, I've seen articles saying that we have a loneliness epidemic. The question that I would ask, though, is the fact that we are living in a more remote world getting to the core problem of why our society may be lonelier? I would say no. Our remote world definitely plays a role, but it does not get to the heart of the problem. We are lonely and isolated because we do not have a good relationship with ourselves. We are lost because we look everywhere but within. Remember the quote I referenced earlier from Arthur Schopenhauer? A man can be himself only so long as he is alone. And if he does not love solitude, he will not love freedom. For it is only when he is alone that he is really free. We can debate what the core problem is to our loneliness epidemic, but what is not up for debate is that while society has given us isolation, it's the individual's job if they want that isolation to be times of loneliness and personal destruction, or times of solitude and personal development. If I could boil down the foundation of the Outworker to one line, it would be this. The relationship with oneself is the most important to develop, but also the easiest to neglect. If the Outworker can play a small role in helping individuals find solitude and personal development, then I'd consider this a massive success. With all of this being said, though, is this my expectation? Absolutely not. We need to redefine how we think of expectations. Your expectations should not be grounded in what you believe you deserve, but in what you know you can give every day. Expect what you know you will give, not what you think you can get. And with that, that is the wrap of episode 1 of The Outworker. Thank you so much for tuning in. I truly appreciate your time and support. Connect with me personally on social media or at this page now at out.worker. Let me know what you thought of the episode and what you would like to see in the future. Any feedback would be awesome. Don't forget to subscribe for more exciting content on YouTube and leave a review on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or whatever platform you are listening on. And guess what? I already have the next episode lined up. Next week, I'm going to take a deep dive into my very own personal development journey over the years, from all the highs to all the lows. So you're definitely not going to want to miss that one. So until next time, keep outworking, baby.